Sonic Talk.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Sonic Talk episode 850. Feels like a portentous number. I couldn't actually think of something to sort of, to link it to. Normally, it's like not a 909 or an 808 or anything. So I couldn't think of one. So that's something for you chatties to kind of consider. In fact, I'll just throw the chat up so you can, if you can come up with that, then please do think about what 850 could possibly join. This is the podcast to do with music technology. So that gives you some sort of clue as to what it should relate to. Nice to see so many people in the chat room. Got Tanith, Burr, Red Walks, Azia Head, Audio Nerd, there's Nick Howes, a whole bunch of people. So nice to see you all. As ever, this is a music technology podcast. So I'm a bit flustered. We're still working through some of those technical issues that we had last week. So excuse me if I'm slightly distracted, but I should be okay. I'm hoping it's going to work out. I just wanted to let you know that in case I seem distracted. We will be talking about a number of topics. There are topics to talk about this week. Before I do, I'm just going to play you a message for our Patreon because I would thoroughly recommend you join it. And part of the reason is we've got a whole new set of decent sampler instruments that I've done together with Venus Theory, who's designed the interface, and we're really looking forward to launching those. So that will be something that you can get hold of. Anyway, back after this. It's 2025 and our Patreon keeps getting better thanks to our supporters. Thank you so much. There's ad-free versions of much of what we post on YouTube. Oh, I beg your pardon. Well, there you go. That's how it works. That's how it goes sometimes. Am I still muted? I'm all right. There we go. Add Patreon. There. That's where it is. Okay, I've still got a few kinks to work out. But yeah, please do consider joining our Patreon, patreon.com/Sonicstate. Very much what we're after. Okay, well, we've got a guest. It's pretty easy this week. All I have to do is introduce Paulie. Hey, Paulie, how you doing?
Hello. How are we doing today? It's almost
I'm
poetic,
flustered,
Nick.
but I'm all right.
It's poetic because it was pretty much 3 years ago to this day when you were desperately looking for a guest last time and I showed up. So so there we go. Here I am again.
Gosh, is it? Interesting.
Yeah, the time flies. 3 years. Wild.
It
but yeah,
does.
As you can see, there's a new computer.
CX5M. Is that CX5 or CX3?
CX5M, which is going to be good video fodder because it's for anyone who doesn't know, it's got a Yamaha 4-operator FM chip inside, and you can type in a bunch of commands and get a little screen, and you can add a cartridge to change the FM sounds, which I've ordered, so that's going to be absolutely brilliant. But yeah, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty chill. I'm enjoying the weather. We don't get much sun in this country for people not in the UK. They won't know, but it's generally overcast, but it's been lovely these last few days, so I've been trying to get outside,
yeah,
and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm absolutely fine.
I'll see if I
Slightly
can.
daunted that we've got to power through an entire hour just with the two of us, but
we'll be fine. I can waffle for it. In fact, I've still got stuff to talk about. In fact, we've got coming up, which I wanted to tell you about, which is I just go to my other page here. Yeah, coming up, we have the Meta module, which is going live at 6 o'clock tonight. That's the 4MS Meta module has had an OS update. And Paulie's done some free patches for the Patreon supporters, so do check that out. I recorded a Thomas Dolby interview on Friday, which I'm just figuring out when to schedule. That was great. Really looking forward to getting that online. Very chatty fellow. Managed to get quite a lot of cover a lot of ground. Got the Moog Messenger at the moment. Again, if you're a Patreon supporter, you can fire in some questions over there and we'll try and get them in the review. We are just under 500 away from our 250,000 YouTube subscribers, which is also a pretty big milestone. Yeah, that's pretty good. Midi Era Meets, Cozy Fanny Tutti, who was from Genesis. I can't remember the name of the band. Oh, God, it's gone. Really
Throbbing Gristle.
Throbbing Gristle, very pivotal sort of high art and experimental stuff. She's got a new album out, T2T. If you check that out in the podcast feed, it's part of that. And you can leave us a voicemail. I wonder if this will work. I'm just trying to think whether it will. Might do. Probably not. Let's have a look. Yeah, there we go. What's the URL? The URL is sonicstate.me/voicemail. Just leave us a voicemail and I'll figure out if we get any, then I can maybe play them into the show and, whatever. That's the idea anyway. There's a whole bunch of things that we could do. So you said you purchased this week, Paulie. Any other unwise purchases?
Any other unwise purchases? No, but I did get in, obviously, to review the Modal Carbonate, which is amazing.
Yes, of course, so that's coming as well.
I filmed all of that and edited that to perfection, hopefully, with some nice, demos and things like that, atmospheric things, running things through the effects processors. So yeah, sometimes, getting things sent to review, temporarily at least, stops my gear acquisition syndrome in its tracks.
There is
but,
that.
It comes back, but it gets paused.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, well, that's an interesting one. I hadn't thought about that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's happened here. Obviously, I've done the Proton. I've got the Moog Messenger on the bench. I think there's going to be an Artemis coming at some point, and I think
cool. That is a great synth.
We've also got the Donna Music L1, which is the sort of 101 clone. Matt's looking at that, so he'll be posting some stuff a little bit later on. So we've just got an embarrassment. There's also, there's lots of stuff in the queue, which is not where we usually are, but it's good because I've been trying to kind of broaden the net, and we're posting a little bit more on Instagram just to try and sort of engage with more of our audience. It seems like it's a growing place to do stuff. We should have been doing it earlier. Matt Maths is dealing with that for us at the moment, which is great. So there's tons of stuff going on.
We need more memes, Nick, to grow our audience.
More memes.
What, more memes? All the time.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. But maybe not with me anymore. Maybe we can have some other memers.
Sure.
A couple of things from the chat room. Fiat, mostly car related for 500, for 850. Volvo 850. There was a, let me see if I can find some of these. There was a Volvo 850 and a Fiat 850. This is from ProSynth Network. Nice to see them there. And there's a Volvo, as you heard, the Volvo 850. I'm trying to think what else. No, I can't think of any other ones.
Didn't Mayer do an 850, MD 850 or something? That's like a...
Who are they?
Matt reviewed one of their synths a while back.
Oh, yes.
The big VA thing.
Yes, that's right. It might have been an 850. I can't remember. You could be right there. Absolutely could be right. But
might have been.
I'm not sure. Well, we've got a topic. We could start with one. We could give it a go, couldn't we? So let me see.
We could try.
And I can see whether this is going to work because I'd obviously be delighted. I don't think the topic auto posting is working, but hey ho, we'll see if it's working anywhere else. It might work in the chapter markers anyway. So let's see. So let's see if this works. I don't seem to have any sound. That's interesting. Okay, well, let's try. Let me try this one. I'll see if this one does it instead. It might work better. There we go. This is the Producely Dialr, and the idea is they've sort of billed it as it's the only plug-in controller you'll ever need. And it's a very sort of lifestyle-y photo. There's some nice hardware there. 12 knobs, 7-inch touch controller, plus there's a few extra buttons for undo, and I think buttons are pretty important. This is a new product. I mean, I posted it and I put rather a clickbaity headline. It's like, is this the only plug-in controller you'll need? And people went mad for it. So it's on, I think they're starting to ship in limited numbers, €649 to €749. Quite a lot of money, but there's very little other kind of information on it, but I don't know. It sort of feels like maybe there's more to know. But yeah, it's the ever perennial problem, isn't it? How to do this? I don't know whether you're. Have you seen? Because we've had that. Well, there's loads of stuff like this, isn't there? But
yeah, there definitely is. The interesting thing that kind of struck me is that is it actually AI? or are they just jumping on that bandwagon? If you
Oh,
get me?
yeah, yes. This is because they said,
it seems like there's lots of things
AI
at the
topics.
moment.
I wonder if there's a... Yeah, it says AI somewhere, doesn't it?
There's a lot of things going on in the world which say that they're AI. And this seems to be quite just a simple... I mean, it's very cool. Like a simple little seeker that just goes through... Essentially, plugins have a backdoor usually. I've seen this in the Synthian community where they use the LV2 format rather than VST. But plugins often have a backdoor to their parameters, which means you can just, instantly port not instantly. You kind of more easily port a plugin and create a different UI for it on a different platform by bringing those parameters and those macros out. So I'm imagining it's kind of just looking for those and then mapping them to the knobs, which is cool, it's clever, but is it actually kind of Skynet kind of AI genius working there, or is it just a bit of a trick? And are a lot of these things called AI just a bit of a, bit of smoke and mirrors, a bit of a trick, and it's the buzzword that people are cashing in on? But aside from that small, that was the point I was going to make, because I really like this product, but I've kind of outed myself as a real sort of Luddite anti-AI store.
I think that I think
what it does is reputation now.
Oh, you're right. You've got to say no.
And I've got to say no, but I actually think this is really cool. And, I do use some other things which call themselves AI. I use upscaling, like for video and images.
Oh, yeah.
I've got some really bad quality 240p B-roll, and I need it to look a little bit cleaner. I will run it through an AI upscaler and feel a little bit dirty doing it. But it's not really AI, is it? It's just kind of an algorithmic thing. So putting that caveat aside, I'm going to say this is a really cool product, because people forever have wanted easy, mappable, the hardware feeling out of software instruments. And it is kind of a nebulous, difficult thing to chase, because you either have to end up spending a lot of time mapping things, or you don't get the full thing. You just get a few macros that have been chosen for you. So I think this is pretty cool. To be honest.
Well, one thing they do say in this is that the AI is kind of used to, I believe, to kind of figure out what the parameters are, and then try and semantically figure out that, certain parameters will always be in the same place across all plugins. So you start to develop a muscle memory. What's not clear is what's going on the screen, whether that's their representation of the plugin or something that is somehow loaded. It's all a bit light on information, and I think we need a bit more for that, because in an ideal world, what it'll do is scan your plugins folder, figure out where everything is, work to a sort of an idea that that it's learnt from where you like things to go in some that you've maybe mapped manually, and give you some visual representation that is maybe that's skeuomorphic as well, so that you see the plugin interface. But I just don't think that's the case, and it sort of implies that, but it's not. It's not clear, and I think that's what. And I think if they can do that, which I suspect would be very difficult, maybe that's where the AI is coming in, because it's sort of figuring out stuff,
making choices for you, perhaps.
Maybe, I don't know, but I've not tried it. I'm trying to remember what the other one was. The one that I've forgotten what it's called. Chat room, remember? There's the one that is in there. There's Topaz. Topaz is an upscaler. I'm trying to remember what the other controller was that we looked at. It was completely blanked, I'm afraid. It was a similar thing, touchscreen, configurable touchscreen with sort of parameters and pots around the outside. That looked kind of interesting, because this has got a touchscreen as well, but I can't remember what it's called. So I'm afraid somebody will probably figure it out. Anyway.
It's cool,
you can buy it now.
We should review it, maybe.
Yeah, I feel like
You know?
maybe some of those things, I would be hesitant to bring it in yet because it feels like pre-orders, and because there's less information, it feels like maybe the firmware isn't as fully developed as one might like as a reviewer, because as you're probably learning and have learned on a couple of occasions, when you agree to review something, one of the questions you should ask is the firmware ready? Because there's nothing more frustrating than kind of getting it all ready, setting up, doing all and then suddenly going, right, now I'm going to go deep, and then going, oh, that doesn't work. And then you go, oh yeah, sorry, that's not ready yet. And you just go, well, then it's not ready for review. And it makes it very hard to review things unless you've been totally briefed about what it can and can't do that it says it should. And this works across software and hardware. Yeah.
Because we have to review things for, it's the Electra one, isn't it?
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
Steve just said.
Steve Elbows in there with that Electra one. Thank you, Steve.
You have to review things for what we think are average, I guess, audience member is going to be, and whereas I'm okay like uploading firmware to a Teensy or hacking SysX or something weird to get something working, most people are going to be like, this isn't a product that's ready for market.
Yeah, and I think that's an issue that one has to do. I mean, and this happens with major brands as well. When I first got the Muse, there were some issues that they fixed quite quickly, which was all right. So I was able to kind of, but sometimes, I'm like famously the Moog One, there were lots of firmware issues at the point I was reviewing it. I know a lot of this has been fixed now, but
I probably told you this before, but the Polybrute initially, firmware 1.1 or something, would forget its firmware. you'd switch it on randomly and it'd be one single glowing light, and it had completely forgotten its firmware. So that was like, oof. And you'd need to re-upload it from your laptop, via USB. So it was not a very good live choice initially, but it's been absolutely fine, in later firmware revisions. But if I'd been in this game at that point and reviewing it with that, I'd have had to be like, well, this is not ready for market,
that's where.
But they sorted it out, so there we go.
Good. Yeah, I think Electra. Maybe I should get the Electra one and this. I feel it's a bit of an unfair comparison because the Electra one has been out for a really long time, and this is just trickling to market. So maybe that's something I could look at.
Could you do like a really sort of eye-catching battle to the death kind of poster with the two bits of gear? Almost shocked like face. Shocked face in the middle. Wars. Yeah, of course. Almost like Rock'em Sock'em Robots, but with the faces being the two devices, and they're going for one another, and you're in the middle going, ah! I think that
that sounds like just the sort of thing I'd go for, Paulie.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the thing I'm definitely trying to avoid. But hey, whatever. Okay, well, I think it's worth keeping an eye on these things, because when someone does get it right, I mean, you'd think with the advent of MIDI 2.0, the problem is not not all plugins, in fact, not many plugins, I'd imagine. It certainly affects plugins are going to be MIDI 2.0, the CI compatible, which is the query, where it can query the interface. I can't remember what CI stands for. It should be QI, shouldn't it? Query interface, but it's not. So we're still a way off, but something to look out for, because I mean, again, much as people, this is a separate thing to general AI. AI is usually, I'm not interested in generative AI. I'm interested in assistive AI, this is the sort of thing that it might be very well applied to. And so, that's the sort of stuff that would be interesting. Anyway, less about that, the better. Okay. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go in with an ad. We'll have a word from our friends over at Isotope while I recombine myself. Let's see if this works.
Take your tracks over the finish line with the Isotope Summer Sale. Save up to 50% on pro audio tools. Deals to get the job done. Just head over to isotope.com.
Indeed. And right, so let me think. What are we having next? There are plenty of topics, so I'm just going to go back to my other page because. Oh yeah, well, actually, let's go to this one because Paulie, this is your topic. Let's see if I can make that. Hopefully, this is going to work. Classic delays, eh? How about that? Let's play this. And I've actually got a demo. This is a demo of the. This is the tree modular liminal, which is using the PT2399, which is you did an article which was a sort of love letter to the to the PT399. So and it's a great piece. So there's something about, and this, I'll scroll a little bit through classic delay. I think I can do that, don't I? Does that go away?
There's the fella, the little chip.
There's the fella. This is the delay that's at the heart. It's one of those things. I mean, in a way, it shares quite a lot with the sort of 303 and the 606 in that it was never designed to be what it was used for. Ultimately,
yes,
it was for sort of karaoke and sort of other weird things. But there are so
definitely
many delays. It's such a sort of evocative sound. And if I'm right, am I right in thinking that the Make Noise? Oh gosh, what was the thing? Strager uses one of these at the hot, or something very similar.
That's interesting because I didn't look that one up, but loads, absolutely a massive amount of delays use this chip, and I think it's just possibly because it's so well documented. You don't need that much supporting circuitry around it to just get, a delay pedal going, or a chorus, You can obviously modulate the delay time as well. So it's really, really cool. But what I love about the chip is when you push it to the extremes, I don't think the max delay time of it is actually very long. I think it could be something like 300 to 400 milliseconds or something, right, in clean.
At full clock. Yeah.
Yeah. Clean, conservative designs will go up to about 400. Then over about 1,000, you get some kind of low kind of sampling kind of aliasing artifacts, and then over that I've got the Bafako crush delay, which goes to a full 2 seconds. I think just absolutely loses its mind. So I
like that sort of thing. That's good. That's a good vibe, isn't it?
And I like taking it just to the edge of it losing its mind, so it kind of gives you something that's still musical but kind of lo-fi and weird and wonderful. So, and the other good thing about this chip is that it's available in so many different forms. You can buy one for £3 or £4. Even cheaper on AliExpress. They've got like a little circuit board with a pot already on it that you can use in your own design.
Oh, nice!
For about £2. And it's. I'm not a builder or an engineer.
Can you chain them to create longer delays so that you would chain them to go longer? Is that how it works?
Well, it's literally just it's RAM with an ADC and a DAC, so it doesn't degrade over time because it's just memory. As long as it's on, it's fine. It doesn't degrade like a BBD would, where each kind of capacitor carries the signal and degrades. This is just some RAM. So yeah, you could chain a few together so it passes, on, or kind of stores twice as much. I imagine that'd be kind of fun to do. But
I'm curious about how these work. So does it work on how much you put in it, or do you define how much of the RAM you're using when you put the sound in? I'm because if it's just,
I believe it's just a variable clock. So the RAM is always all used. However much of it.
Oh, so if you turn the speed up,
if you turn the speed up,
it's the sample rate effectively, or the clock.
Yeah, it's the sample rate of the clock. and then when you push it past its nice operational range, that's when you get craziness. So if anyone's interested in this stuff, there's good websites like Pedal Parts and stuff like that where you can get these little kits, and I've often been tempted to kind of look into one or two of them. As I said, I'm a disaster with a soldering iron. Or I was last time I tried a few years ago, but I know a couple of things now, like if you pre-tin your wires and all sorts of stuff, people have told me. So I think I might not be as disastrous now. So
right.
I might build something from Pedal Parts at some point.
That's one thing I've never done.
PT2399 delay.
Oh, right. Okay. I've never really done that. I did some breadboarding once. I'm more tinker in the code environment. I'm sort of happier with that, to be perfectly honest. As is demonstrated by my all of the back end of Sonic is basically written by me. And this is...
It's very clever stuff.
What you're witnessing at the moment is the sort of bleeding edge of me messing it up by changing, because this is quite a convoluted system. I'm just in the process. The only way I'm going to find out whether these variables work or not is if I've...
Can we show them behind the curtain, Nick?
Oh yeah, I could show them. Well, this is what we're seeing. I could actually show that screen.
I'm pointing my camera at the screen. Oh, there we go.
So that's what I send back to Paulie and myself. So this gives us the sort of the topics
like
and the videos
behind
and the
curtain at Disneyland.
That's all you get. That's all you get. I will do a video about that sometime. Maybe I'll do a video about it when we reach 250,000, and we can see what's going on. Gosh, I don't know why does Baby Audio keep playing? I think I must have had a number going wrong somewhere. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We'll figure it out. Okay, 327. So let's have a look. It says, and I've done add one already, so I don't need to do another one. Let's see. Let's go to another topic. What was the next one?
Woohoo!
Next one is
getting through them.
Oh yeah, this was good. And this starts with a video on from, I'm trying to remember the guy who did it. Now I wrote it down. Anyway. Well, let's put it here.
Andrew, I'm a live sound engineer, and this is the channel where I'm helping you to mix better live events. A lot of people have asked me how I run a sound check. So in this video, I just wanted to take you quickly through the sort of process, workflow, one.
So this was actually from an article, which was, let me see if I post that, because it seems like that's not working in this chat. So if I do that now, it'll do that and it'll be able to post. So if I put, this is an article that was on Gear News, and it was just literally, top tips on how to get the most from a sound check. And I think it really resonated with me, because I spent a lot of time. I'm trying to think how many sound checks I may have done in my life as a sound engineer from that side. A lot. I did a lot. I used to do sound for a club in Bath, and I must have worked there for 3 or 4 years, and I did a lot, and festivals and all kinds of things. So I've done a lot of that sort of thing, and it's just sort of thing, because when you show, what's that?
You let slip the other day that you used to do the acoustic stage at Glastonbury.
Yeah, stage managed it for a bit.
That must have been
for a little while.
Chaos.
Well, it was kind of chaos. I mean, it was a bigger event. I guess I would have soundchecked. I think I learned my chops there, because obviously you're dealing with lots of weird and wonderful acoustic things. And I always used to get gigs where, this is a difficult band to mix, get Nick to do it. And it's like, so I would do. But I mean, I think the thing is as an artist, if you're going to your first gig and there's going to be a sound engineer and you need to sort of interact with you and not sure what to expect. I mean, that video I played earlier was a little bit more as a sort of, I turn up in a room, there's no speakers, there's nothing, I'm building the whole thing, this is the order I do it in. I didn't really get into the, which is, I always find quite interesting, and I've had to do that a few times. I prefer not to if I can. But this is things that you should do or think about when you're going, make sure you've got the cables you need, make sure they work, make sure you haven't got stuff that's sort of really fussy. Simplify your setup and make sure it's fit for purpose. That's one of the things, because there's nothing worse than being in a sound check and scrabbling around trying to figure out why something's not working. And it really detracts, because mostly sound checks, they start off very leisurely, but then as the time gets closer and closer to sort of doors, and the sound engineer and the crew maybe want to go and get some supper before they come back for the event, you know, you need to start thinking about it. So those are the sort of tips I would do. I mean, you've probably done more sound checks when you're turning up with a lot of weird stuff and it needs to be, you know, working. I mean, preparation, I suppose, would you say?
Preparation. It's wild thinking about it, and I should probably write a book of memoirs at some point. Between, I'm going to say 2006, 2007 and 2016, I was just gigging constantly all over the place, you know, in Birmingham and around the UK. And yeah, the sound check is like for me, it was like the worst part of
we don't get any of the buzz from the audience.
live gigging, just this endless, because when you're doing sound check with a live drummer as well, every time it's checking the kit, you know, like douche 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 boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
just checking the mics on the drum kit, you know. But the experience was made so much better at times where you had a good sound tech who had a good sense of humor, or you had good support bands, or, you know, someone who would crack a couple of jokes when they're doing the mic sound check or something. I remember I supported Code 64 once. I don't know if anyone knows Code 64. They were pretty big sort of back in the mid 2000s, and the lead singer there was just cracking jokes in his sound check, you know, because they were a completely electronic band. They needed barely anything doing, you know, they had their own submix, send it out, there we go. So he was
that's the answer
the entire time. That is the answer as well. Of course, I've noticed that it's the combination of, for electronic music, whenever I do my Amiga based performances now, or my retro computing based performances, I just give the sound guy a submix that I've myself have got on stage, and then he just does the vocals, you know. I've got control, and then I give him the vocals. So it's a very, very different experience to doing it what I consider to be the hard way live, which is real kind of live musician, which is absolutely amazing and incredibly rewarding when it goes well. But it is a lot of setup, you know. It's miking up the drums, usually clip-on mics, then miking up the guitar amp and the bass amp, and then of course my vocals and my submix on top of that. So you need someone who will you know, who looks happy to be there. There's one sound
that's
tech.
a hard There's that world weary vibe, isn't there, that really does.
Oh my god, there was this one guy who, I don't know who he thought he was, but he was only doing sort of live mixes in a local Birmingham pub, but he would be completely different to people if he thought they were someone, you know. He'd do a better job and be more lively and chatty and everything like that if he thought you were someone, which must happen quite often, you know, that kind of almost gatekeeping-y kind of thing. So, well, but my best one, the best one I ever did was we obviously we were all pretty seasoned musicians, you know, so we could improvise and stuff like that. And there was a preacher came in during soundcheck, and he started doing his preaching
Wow.
I don't know why there weren't many people there.
Insensitive.
Be insensitive, right? And trying to hand out leaflets and stuff. So we burst into "Oh Happy Day, Oh Happy."
Fun fact: I did a remix of "Oh Happy Day" many years ago,
and the guy was there dancing. You know, of course, you know, I was wearing completely inappropriate clothes to be playing "Happy Day," but he liked it anyway. But so that's my best Soundcheck story, essentially. But yeah, you need someone who wants to be there. Is my
I mean, I think there was a great there's a good tip here actually. This came in from John BEDM, Rick Marston H. I'm not quite sure how that. Anyway,
yes,
bring your own DIs. Bringing your own DIs is a really good idea. So you just kind of go, look, here, you just plug into these. We've got a rack of DIs. I can have, so you can have kick, snare, a couple of sub mixes, and then on stage you could, and it's made much easier, obviously, with bands that have certain amount of either playback sources or remix sources, mixed sources that they're sub mixing, because you can get a mixer that's very small. But you need to do that. You sort of need to be doing it more often so that you realize what's needed. If you're just showing up for your first gig, even having like a decent stereo output to a pair of DIs that you bring your own, because many venues are just not going to have. They're going to have, I've got one, but it's on the bass, and if you're sharing the stage with other acts, then they won't have lots of spares. So a couple of DIs is a really good idea. I mean, what we used to do with Golf Rap, but again, this was as a result of having massive production rehearsals. We used to use an a DM1000, which is Yamaha desk.
Yeah.
And so everything would come into that needed mixing, apart from the acoustic stuff, or sometimes that would as well. And then each song was mixed so that the fader was at unity across all of them, so that the relative levels was sorted in the mixer, and they just went out to the front of house. So the front of house just ended up with, it was either 8 or 16 channels that were all, that didn't sort of require mixing. It's like you'd hear it go, the bass drum needs to come down, trigger in here for a bit. So you do that, and then you'd write it in at the sound check, and then it would play back, and it would all come back. And so the person at front of house would be dealing with the vocal effects and any other sort of live incidentals. I mean, now, with the modern desks that you have, if you're touring, at least, most of that stuff is pre-worked out. There's very little on the fly. I mean, I used to be working on an analog desk when I was working at clubs, and I had the Lars, I had Primal Scream, I had quite a lot of big bands. I remember Primal Scream showed up at this tiny club in Bath.
Wow.
Scottish guitar. It was just before Loaded came out. And they were really just sort of unpleasant to deal with, if I'm perfectly honest. They showed up with this thing. Jimmy Gillespie was just a prat, and was really sort of just what's the word I'm looking for? He was just really, he would just, I would sort of say, right, this is a really small room. You've got an 8x12 guitar stack. I sort of said to the guitarist, that's great, but if you turn it up to what you're normally used to on a big stage, everybody will be at the back of the room, hiding behind the pillars at the bar when you play, and they won't be able to take the level of sound. I mean, if you've got something that you can still get your sound with, but bring the sound down, it'll really help. Yeah. And they just sort of went, no, F you, man, this rock and roll. And so what happened? They played their thing, and he was also banging on about, dance music is crap and all this stuff. And then they played their gig. Everybody was pinned to the back of the room. Nobody wanted to go up. They were miles away from the stage. Nobody was interested. Exactly what I said. And then 3 days later, I Just Want to Get Loaded came out, and it was like, oh, wait a minute. That's an Oakenfold dance remix, and now you're a massive dance act. Yeah, really.
Wild.
Anyway, that's probably... I just remember thinking, that's a bit rubbish. Unfortunately, the ones that you remember, I mean, you do remember the good gigs, but the ones you do remember are the ones that are the divas. And this is why I guess divas and that sort of behavior gets remembered and becomes legendary, because most people remember it, because most of the time they don't have to deal with that sort of thing. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Anyway, I'm going to take
another one. Just very quickly.
Go on then.
If you are doing a Halloween gig and you come as a spooky circus, like costumes, everyone. So I was the ringmaster, a couple of clowns, a jester perhaps. Make sure that the sound tech doesn't have a deathly fear of clowns. Because that's going to be an awkward sound check, and it was an awkward sound check.
That's tough.
Terrified.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's quite funny, but and a very common problem actually. Fear of clowns. It's not a actually there was a TV program.
You vet your clown related acts. Do
you put it on the rider? Put it on the rider. Say, is anyone afraid of clowns?
Clown.
Because one clown, or a clown. Okay, I'm just going to take a quick break. We'll be back after this.
This is your summer of sound. Everything you need to make it happen. Deals so hot you'll need sunscreen. What will you create with Native Instruments? Sale ends June 30th.
Yeah, it's a very short one, but those of you who had become used to the old ad may have felt it was time for a change. And so that's running till June the 30th. So fill your boots, and thank you very much for their sponsorship. Right. We've got other, we're getting it. I mean, this is summer. I mean, this is what happens in the summer. We have to find, oh, actually, this one's a good one. This is a cracker. So I think let's see if this works. I mean, the topic things worked, but the posting to the topics isn't working. So there's just something on my list to fix. But let's have a look at this one. This is a whole new load of VCV rack modules out for 2025. There's a great video here. This was an article on CDM Link, which is there's a new J arrange. There's some other stuff.
So another overview of some of the new modules that were added to the VCV library in the last weeks. Already we start with a new drum module from Nano that is also available in hardware, of course. We have 4 drum voices with various controls, even individual outputs, built-in compressor and filter.
He ends up with a really interesting sort of...
And again, we have the envelope follower output.
Trigger-based demo and clock division demo.
And again, we have the wave multi...
Oh, I don't know. I'm kind of, the more I see of VCV rack, and it's becoming so much more mature. And now, many people have got computers, whether it's an M series or some ARM based system, which, the new HPs, is it the HPs? I can't remember which one it is. Anyway, there are ones that are really sort of superpower. I mean, these can run all day on this stuff. So the excuse for not getting into modular because you don't want to buy the physical stuff, you could do it so easily on the computer now, and there's some amazing modules here. And I guess this ties in a little bit, Paulie, with what you've just done with the Meta module, which runs a sort of subset. I mean, apparently they're quite straightforward. I was checking that they're quite straightforward to port, so maybe we'll see more of that. And I just think such a great environment. And there are some really. What did you see new in VCV? Do you use VCV outside of Meta module as well, or are you mostly just using it on the Meta module?
To be honest, I downloaded VCV for my review to make sure that the the VCV import into Meta module worked, because essentially, I think it's a bit of a complete time killer. I'm very wary of it because, I don't know, it's one thing. Meta module has, of course, more, although it's very powerful, more limited CPU than a real, than a MacBook or a very powerful PC. So sometimes the kind of and of course I'm limited in the real number of modules in the real world as well, so I am kind of scared to get too deep in to VCV rack unless I'm there kind of hours later having crafted a 3-screen wide opus. But it's very, very fun, and I think for kind of taking something musical away on holiday, it's absolutely incredible, isn't it? And you can run it at 96 kilohertz as well, so you can do all of your audio rate modulations. Absolutely brilliant. But yes, I haven't looked at all of the new modules yet. But there is the new arrange module, isn't there? Which,
John, again, hybrid system seems a smart idea, and I think that's kind of maybe where even if it's just a piece of hardware that somehow interfaces. I mean, I can see maybe, that we've seen the tip-top art system where there's lots of, and you can map controls. I mean, if they came up with some hardware that just allowed you very easily to kind of go, here's a box of knobs and a few jacks, they'll do this in this configuration.
Yeah.
So, I mean, kind of like the meta module, but sort of without the need for the additional DSP, just a sort of front end for it. So you've got a physical thing to interact with, might be an interesting thing to explore.
Yeah, I guess Expert Sleepers does that kind of thing in a way, don't they? Because they offer...
Yeah, but it's more I/O rather than control.
It's I/O rather than control. Yeah, that'd be... I guess if you had an Expert Sleepers and kind of a bank of faders or stuff like that, that'd be kind of cool. But an all-in-one product, yeah, that might be really, really cool, like just a standalone modular controller. But yeah, what I'm seeing now, interestingly, in a lot of these new, more sophisticated Eurorack sequencers, is that there's a way to write songs that modulate key a little bit more. I think in old school modular, it's great for tomble exploration and rhythm and things like that, and clock divisions and stuff like that. And I love doing that. But it usually becomes the percussive part of the music for me, because I want the harmony to evolve a bit more than a Eurorack sequencer can give me. So I'll be playing the harmony polyphonically, probably on the keys or something like that. But a lot of these newer Eurorack sequencers, I tell you that...
Well, the Oxy Mark II is everybody's freaking out about that one. All the people I spoke to in Berlin, or many of the people I spoke to in Berlin who are performing live techno, at least, were saying, and I know Gaz absolutely swears by it, because it can...
Yes.
It can work musically and modally and on scales and chords and follow, and it has loads of really interesting... So that might be something to explore.
Definitely. As I said, it's for me it's always harmony first, and that will be what I will happily listen to, like a demo with timbre and rhythm, just interesting sounds. But if you want to keep my attention for more than, say, 3 minutes, I'm gonna need some kind of key change or something, some kind of modulation. That's just my brain, what I like to latch on to. Other people look for different things in music, completely different things in music, which is the beauty of it. So yes, some of these new Eurorack sequencers, including this new one in VCV Rack, JW Arrange. I like the JW modules. I've been using some of them in Meta Module, so I think that will probably turn up, if it hasn't already, in Meta Module too. But it's the fact that you can easily mute or unmute parts which may have different sections of the song or completely different key signatures, that you can then switch in and out, is very exciting. It's bringing more musicality to Eurorack, which has always been amazing for sound and rhythm, but harmony, it's kind of... those the JW modules, which is what the sort of premise of the CDM thing was, that they're more arranger available. Matt Mass is in the chat room, and I think he was just saying he's got a Artemis video premiering after this at 5 p.m. over on his channel. Cool. So do check that out. So yeah, I'm still waiting for mine. They've been saying they're going to send me one for like months, and it just never seems to arrive. So I'm a bit gutted. They can go from us to they can go from us to maths, and then come back to us for 6 o'clock.
Yeah, look at that. You got the whole evening's stuff sorted out there. Yeah, fantastic.
A whole evening's nerdy entertainment.
Exactly. What else did we get? Oh, there's
indie bands is one, wasn't it?
Indie bands. Let's do it. Okay, yeah, let's do this. This was another Gear News article, which was really interesting. Which is Synths for bands, and I've got a video. I think it's just a web page. It's just 7 best synths for vans. Okay, let's accept that. Synths for bands, and top of the list is the Moog Messenger, which may well get there. But I mean, for me, the one that that is the one that that was the first one. That and the Nova, the Novation, was it the Super Mini Nova? Those two were two massive potentials. Let me see. I'll post that link in because my link pasting isn't working. We'll do that one. So they've got 7 up. You got one as well?
At the time was the R3, which was like the sequel to the Microkorg with the little gooseneck mic. That one had a lot of sort of, indie kind of indie band potential.
So the idea with this is it's an article about synths for bands. So they got Microkorg OBM X8. Who's going to want to carry around that Phantom EX? I mean, these are sort of workstation-y things, and they've got the Astrolab series, which I'm Moog Messenger, possibly Behringer Wave, not sure. I think I would add to that Minilog. I mean, all day. Korg are really good at these little synths, and by that same token, the Mini Freak. We're talking about those sort of little. Sort of maybe it's incidental. You haven't got a full-on keyboard player who's playing all the time. Hydrasynth Mini Explorer as well. What have you got there? You got you got the nice black.
I've got the Stellar Edition.
Stellar Edition, very nice. I could imagine that'd be really good for bands who maybe are not based purely electronically. What else did I get? Microkorg's the big one. Let's have a look. So that I'm sure the chat is going to have a few suggestions. Come on, chat. Let's see what you got. FA06, Jupiter X, that's a good shout. That's because that's quite
Jupiter
small.
X would be cool.
JDXI, that's an interesting one because Rich Hilton, I think when Chic do, they do Around the World, or Get Lucky. I think it's the Get Lucky one, which is the one that Nile Rodgers wrote with that, and they use the JDXI as the vocoder for that, so that does get used quite a lot. So that's a good one. Easy to. Billy Bart Cody says, I love my micro synth, micro freak. VR09. What's a VR09? Korg Wave Station.
It's
I guess the mini
VR09 is a combo keyboard. I think it's like a V combo with an organ section, a synth section.
Good shout. James Glue says sub 37.
I thought there'd be more Nord on that list.
Funnily enough, but that's more if you've got a keyboard player, I think, and who's properly. Right. There was a lot of Nord when we were talking about the VCV rack. People saying that Nord modular was massively influential. In fact, I think if I remember correctly, when we had
my camera went off.
I'm trying to remember what his name is now. That's all right. Finley Shakespeare came and played at our EMOM, and he was using a Nord modular rack live, and it sounded absolutely fantastic. SH101, Peter Coit, MFB Dominion. That's pretty specialist. I mean, I think some of those Roland Juno, the later Junos, which do a bit of everything, they're quite good. They're very light and sort of low commitment, but they've got some good, decent sounds. MS2000 and full size keyboard. Gosh. Sub 27, that was a good mention from Jim Glue. I already mentioned that. There are a lot. I mean, obviously, there are a lot that bands will use. And I imagine they're going to want to take something because, I mean, most bands who are just incidentally going to be doing gigging are not going to want to take computers and master controllers and sound cards and stuff like that. You just need... Nick House says the Juno DS is hideous. I don't know. I reviewed it and I thought I didn't think it was hideous. I think that's a little harsh.
I was wondering what kind of sound world the indie band wants to create is going to have a very big effect on what they choose. I think that, the Minilog is a bit of a winner, or the Mini Freak, because there's the Minilog XD or the Mini Freak, because there's a lot of variety in there.
Absolutely,
you can do a washed out VA or analogy kind of sound, but you can also do something that sounds a bit like a lo-fi electric piano. A warbly lo-fi electric piano, to me, is what I think bands like this might value. Maybe like a Mellotron-y kind of tape thing. So that's where kind of sampling might be useful. You know, like in a workstation or something like that. But yeah,
look,
I think it's got to be the microKORG.
101 and a MC707 or 101 and a MIDI keyboard. That's a good shout. That 101.
Yeah. No, that is a good shout. Because I've run my live set from a 101 several times now, and it's absolutely banging. I think the microKORG has to win because I've seen it myself.
Oh, it was everywhere. Well, it was one of the biggest selling keyboards of all time. I mean, at the time, I don't know if it's been beaten, because that's exactly what you got people bring, and then you got people playing on stage, and you quite often have a singer or a bass player, and they turn to the side and have it on a little, beer crate or something, and be adding.
That's it. Exactly that. It was that synth. It performed that function, and often that synth was just doing a little bit of a vocoder sound with the built-in microphone. That was a big draw as well. And interestingly, I did an article on past reviews of the microKORG on Sonicstate, if anyone wants to see what people thought of it at the time, because there was a definite kind of synth gatekeeping snobbery about the microKORG.
Yeah.
Even though it is based on the MS-2000 and sounds really good, it does sound really, really good. There was a lot of kind of snobbery that, these indie kids are just, buying microKORGs, blah, blah, blah. Lowest common denominator kind of synth. What have synths become kind of thing, bemoaning that. But
fast forward, where are we now? Yeah.
Well, it had a pronounced effect on a generation. I think it was essentially later millennials version of something like a Casio's CZ1, just a 101, just a cheap synth that people could get their hands on and make music with, basically.
Funny story about Sorry, carry on.
They caught a lot of flack for that genre knob, didn't they?
Yeah, it dates so quickly. Never put genres on your synth if you can avoid it. Although maybe they'll come back, because it makes it look
charming now.
A home key. Yeah, maybe it's becoming back in. Funny story. I remember me and several other music journalists and whatnot were brought over to Korg, where they're sort of brainstorming what the next microKORG should be, and there was a lot of discussion about it, and it was I remember it was ages and ages ago, and the thing is they'd say, well, you'll all get one of whatever it is that we make, and what they actually made was the Minilog. That's what came out of that discussion. The Minilog came out. I don't know if it was specifically, because I suspect the Minilog was being developed by oh gosh, my memory's going crazy. It was being developed anyway, and it all just sort of came together, and I said, well, maybe this should be the new thing, because obviously since then Korg it was just before Korg's sort of analog revolution, where they figured out how to make this stuff a bit more affordable. So I still think the Minilog XD is a crap Tatsu. Yeah, I think if I would, I've got a Minilog, and I wish I'd bought a Minilog XD desktop. I think I thought that synth was great, because I think the effects in it were just so inspiring. I really enjoyed them a lot.
Yeah. Anyway, definitely. And some of the user oscillators now are absolutely wild. You can get for it, you can get a port of Mutable Instruments Platts for it, for instance, which is really cool. To have that polyphonically on a Minilog. You get a bit of almost modular flavour.
Maybe Korg are still holding the coveted sort of most likely to turn up on an indie band night.
Yes.
There's probably still a lot of microKORGs out there as well.
Yes.
Anyway, jolly good fun. I think I'm going to wrap things up a little bit now, because we've all done very well. Well done. I don't want to. You might have to sing later, and I don't want you to use all your voice up. So yeah.
That's fine.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Well, we've still got the video playing and the baby. Oh, anyway, I was just trying to do a split, so I'll just go to that instead. That's a bit easier. So thank you, Paulie. Much appreciated.
No
Thanks to everybody in the chat. It's been a very vibrant chat this week. Don't forget, at 5 o'clock over at Matt's Maths channel, and then 6 o'clock back to us for the 4MS Meta Module version 2 update video. So do check that out. So, Paulie, what's next for you? Have you got anything lined up?
Finish this Carbonate video. And then I'm going to get serious about my record label, essentially, and just start getting people on board to, do the first, quite casually. I've got my own Discord, Magical Synth Adventure, and people casually just say to me sometimes, here's the little thing I did. Do you reckon you could sing over that? Or do you reckon you could do this? Or blah, blah, blah. So I think I'll be looking at a few of those and be looking to put out a kind of compilation album, essentially. And that'll be me. Make a couple of bucks, hopefully, at the same time.
Well, maybe start with an EP, because then I think there's no need to kind of go massive straight away. Start with an EP, right. Develop a character, then do another EP, then do an album, then do because I'm often talking to people who are musicians. I met a guy called Andy Davis, who is a local musician. He was part of the Corgis, songwriter. He's been doing, he's really experienced. He's had a very long career. He's played with Tears for Fears, and he was sort of saying, I've got this album, and I was saying maybe you should just aim a bit lower. Don't try and finish an album. Do a few songs and just keep them coming and get people to sort of maybe subscribe to your output. It's just a different thing, because then when you've got that going, you can go to a label, because they're still very much thinking you can go to a label and get license and get distribution because you've already got the following and the demand. So there's so many ways to do these things, I think. Most definitely.
Oh no, definitely. I think kind of building up a bit of steam and building up the contacts as well is better, rather than burning out, through exhaustion.
I would
feeling fear of failure or whatever.
Go low key to begin with, rather than set a too big a target.
That was another thing as well, wasn't it? Just briefly, there'll be a video coming up soon with Unmute, won't there? We chatted to them.
Yes.
So that'll be another kind of cool one, because they're trying to do a similar thing to me, but with live performance. So that's a really interesting project.
Yeah. So just to recap, that Unmute were I think I spoke about it in the pre-show. It's coming up. Unmute as an organisation that is trying to get link up disabled artists with venues and mostly festival stuff, and get them gigs and make sure that their requirements are met, and make sure there's a formalized sort of way of just saying, you put on the rider, oh, by the way, I need wheelchair access, or I can't see, or whatever it may be, or and you can put all of that stuff in, and it just becomes a norm. And so it sort of escalates the sort of, oh, this is weird scenario, and it just becomes a normality, and people just deal with it, and that's their thing. So me and Paulie had a chat with them about that, so we'll be coming up. All right, well, I think it's probably time to say goodbye, so I'm now going to press the end button and see if that works. So thanks very much for watching, everybody. See you later. Bye.